smiling in your face, really.
Hello, welcome to Behind the Mic, and today I'll bring you a singer, a songwriter, an actor. I'm already getting tired from all the things that he does. But ladies and gentlemen, Jesse Vega.
Hi, Charles. It's good seeing you.
Good. So, now we're getting a little intimate here today.
I
so,
know. Did you realize it's been like 4 years since the last time we sat in a
know.
studio? It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. So for you guys that don't know, Jesse Vega sings, songwrites, dance, choreographer, actor, producer, director.
Jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades.
I think I'm tired now.
But we're going to talk about from when you were small and young. And the first question I always ask every single person is, where were you born at?
So I was born in the Bronx.
Oh, yes.
So you know how they say, oh, I was born in South Bronx, and I was born in South Bronx. When I say South Bronx, 138.
Oh, okay.
Not that far from 138 and Alexander Avenue.
Okay, because everybody's from Brook or Alexander or Grant.
But when they was like South Bronx, they were like 180. I'm like, that's not South Bronx, but okay. I'm talking about South Bronx when you're about to cross to Manhattan. That's South Bronx. But yeah, Lincoln Hospital.
Oh, yeah. So.
And raised all throughout Alexander Avenue because that's where my family was growing up.
Wow. Both parents are Latino?
Both parents are Latino. My father was born in Puerto Rico and then just went to New York and started getting raised and lived his life. My mom was born and raised here, but she kept going back and forth from New York to Puerto Rico.
Okay. How many siblings you have?
I got one. Okay. One brother.
Older or younger?
Younger.
Oh, okay.
My mom didn't really want kids, to be honest with you.
That's weird, though, to hear a Spanish person only with 2 kids.
My mom, like I said, my mom really didn't want kids. I think she wanted to have the stable family life, the father, and then her as the mother, and have the upbringing. But God had a different path for her. So when she finally gave birth and had a child, I think it kind of put her in a place to settle. So her life just changed differently. So this is interesting. I'm speaking about it. So I like that question. But yeah, 2 kids.
Wow, okay. Yeah, because, especially when the Bronx was burning, everybody was having kids. There was no TV,
I know, everybody. I mean, from my mom's side of the family, you have all these aunts because, the baby boomers, everybody was coming back from the war, so everybody was getting pregnant and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was the years and stuff. So, your school, how far apart are you from your brother?
5 years.
Oh,
we only live 5 years apart.
Okay, well, that's
still millennials. He's the last 95. Yeah. I'm right there.
But it's still enough to say, hey, I'm older than you.
Right. I can still say.
I've been there.
But we grew up on the same things. He was more into Cartoon Network. That was his thing. I was more into PBS. I know what kind of child likes PBS, right? They're like, ew, the Learning Channel.
Channel 13. That's what I grew up with.
Well, mine was, I think PBS was on Channel 21. It did change, but I don't know why. Different cable providers.
Yeah. Yeah, that growing up with, Sesame Street, Electric Company, and all these other cartoons, that's what Bronx kids grew up with,
Right. So, I mean, unless you like He-Man and Spider-Man and all that, then you go to WB and Nickelodeon.
Saturday cartoons.
Saturday cartoons. I never went to that. That was my brother. My brother, when he was born, he was more into that stuff.
More into the Saturday cartoons?
More into that. Like I said, more in Cartoon Network and maybe WB11, but that was him. That's how I got into that. I was like, okay, I got into watching a little bit of that. So.
So what schools do you go to? Yeah.
So it's so crazy because when I went to the public school, PS 150, what was it? PS 151, I can't really remember, but I know it's on Alexander, PS 151. Alexander Avenue. My mom went to that school. My aunts went to that school. A lot of my family went to that school. I was there till I was kindergarten to 4th grade. PS 154. I'm so sorry. I gotta get that right. Sorry. Jesus Christ. I'm where's your brain at? It's been a long day. But I went to that school till I was in the 4th grade, and then got left back. I mean, hey.
It happens.
It happens. Hey. But then I didn't really graduate to that school. We moved from the projects, and then we went to Boston Road on 168, and I finished 1 year of elementary. And then I graduated. So yeah, that was the public school that I went to, PS 154.
Yeah, 154. That's it. We went a couple of times there when we were in the band. We had to go there. They had band.
You was at PS 154?
No, I was in 22. But when we had that band.
Where's that at?
22 is right off Morris and 167.
Okay, you were more further.
Further up,
Okay, so
yeah.
you was not around this in this area, no.
Well, the only time we were on this area is when they're doing the marching band challenges that they go to
Oh,
other
okay,
schools.
okay.
They don't have that no more, but
No, things changed now.
music was the thing back in the day.
No, of course.
Either
Yeah.
you had chorus, marching band, you had poetry, science clubs. Now they don't really have none of that.
Yeah, they don't
so-
have it. They take a lot of electives out for kids to even want to enjoy going to school nowadays.
So, but where your school? How was your school life? Were you popular, the bullied? How did you manage your? Well, junior high school is a little rough. That's when we get to know each other. Know yourself. But
Right.
How elementary.
Which I'm
is-
excited to talk about that part
Right.
of my life.
But your elementary, how was that? That's when you start knowing friends and.
In elementary school, I was just very animated. To be honest with you, I was like, I wanted everyone to be my friend. I was so talkative. I cannot tell you how talkative I was. But like, I just wanted to just be around people. Like, it didn't really bother me that I was not home with my mom because I'm a mama's boy.
Right.
I mean, I could really remember vaguely when my mom finally put me into school. I did cry like a big baby, like, mommy. But then after I started seeing all these people and these like kids like me, I was like gravitating, talking a lot. I think people found me to be like, they would say I was so annoying because I was so talkative. And like, what child just talks so much? And I think I've learned to talk a lot because I used to watch growing up Oprah Winfrey.
Right.
At like the age of like 2-3 years old, I was so into the Oprah Winfrey show. And like, what kind of Puerto Rican kid, light skin, was into a talk show, African American female, big girl, like Oprah Winfrey, but that was just me. So I was always talking, trying to have people to be my friend. So elementary school wasn't a struggle. I was just trying to find myself to like be around people to like love me. But I will have to say a lot of the female big girls, because I was always into big girls, like the gordita girls, they loved me. They loved me and I loved them. And they would always defend me when I was ever getting bullied. They were like, I was just into like the cariño, like the love and stuff like that. So, big girls was like my thing. And I still to this day, even though I'm 32, I still love big girls. I just get very soft-hearted with a lot of big girls. I just feel like they have a lot to offer. And like, I think men should just like appreciate those big girls more instead of just like, you don't have to be skinny to like, oh, they're the baddest thing in the room, But for me, I just love big girls. And I was always into a lot of those type of women growing up. They were like my warriors, because I was very small, very tiny.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, how if you were small, because there's some people that were real small, or they were tall and they never grew up after that. They just stood at one level.
No, I was very short. I was very small. I mean, with a room full of there were like kids who were like very taller than me, and you would think like they were in junior high school. Some of them just grew. I mean, I'm only 5'3". I say 5'5" on a good day, but I'm actually 5'3", but I was always small. But I was so cute, but just so talkative. And even the teachers, when parent-teacher conference would come, oh my God, I would be so afraid because they'll be like, so your son is so cute. He's so wonderful, loving, but he talks, and I'm like, Jesse, shut up. And I would just be the one always trying to make jokes and being funny and just like talking to this girl over here. And she'd be like, Jesse, shut up. Talking, my mom like, Jesse, how many times you gotta be talking? Like, you go talk at home. Like, when you're in school, just listen. But my mind was in a different world.
Yeah, I feel you, because I was the same way. They always were like, you only got to make a joke, and then we realized after I grew up, it's because it wasn't challenging enough. I already finished the work, so I'm like this.
And
so
you just wanted to enjoy people's energy. You just wanted to feel included in like conversations, or just keep the ball rolling with the time. Because she's like, I don't want to do these like this math or this alphabets or whatever. So
like, I already know it. Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's keep it moving.
Let's keep it moving. Make friends was my goal.
Yeah. It was a good. Nowadays it's you don't know who's going to be your friend. So you can be like, yeah, that's my friend in class, but before it was that was your friend. It was that little clique was even outside clique, and stuff like that.
I didn't really have that. That was more of what I was yearning for, and because you mentioned that, I was
clique.
Not that, but mostly like having friendship. I was so yearning for someone. So then that you mentioned that, I was really at that young age was just yearning for someone to be my friend. I was just searching because I didn't really find my way, especially growing up in a Latino like culture where like my cousins were into sports and they were into girls and they were into playing hooky, and they didn't really wanted to settle for like school. I was more into like having friends, and I just was in a fantasy world. And a lot of kids nowadays were not into that stuff. So that was what I was searching for as I was growing up.
Yeah, it's especially when the Bronx was burning. You don't know where, where you were gonna go, and then you hitting the 2000s and stuff like that. People don't know where now. People just, as long as you're on TikTok, you're okay. You know what I'm saying? So
social media has changed everyone's personalities now.
Yeah. So now we're going towards your goals. When did you start knowing that you wanted to do music or things like that?
So when I was at a young age, adolescent, in the beginning, my mom always said I was always had this habit of just like reciting things, like reciting lines from a movie, reciting like dance pieces, whatever. I think the music didn't, like, I always loved the musical theater aspect and like the singing and the dancing and acting, and I know how that was like my niche, but music didn't come until later on while I was like in my teenage years.
Oh, okay.
And it took a long time for that to come around because I was so delved into my ways of trying to be someone else or some other artist, because that was what made me feel comfortable. And it wasn't until like my mom said, you gotta find who you are as a person. You gotta do what fits you and your style of music and your style of performance, so people could see you and not just say, oh, you're just someone else's image. And I think that came around until like I was like 14, 15, and then when my pops died, he had cancer. That's when it started clicking. And I always say this, like when a family member dies, you start inheriting their gifts.
Right.
Everybody is like, everybody has their own different beliefs and spiritual sense. But for me, I always believe like when someone dies, you inherit what they left over. And when he passed away, I started developing the things like he had an ear for. Like he'll listen to something and he'll play the congas and he'll know what the melody is and the beats per minute. And people used to say, how in the world he would know that? But he was just mostly had an ear for things. He was very gifted. So I started inherit that later on in life. And I think I've had it, but I wasn't really tapping into it. So like the music started coming way later until in my teenage years. Some people start early, but me, because I was so cabeza duro, hard and not believing in myself, it took me a long time, but I always had it in me, but I had to really develop it.
Yeah, when a person passes away, a lot of people is like, oh, the spirit spark came into me. It's in psychology we call that more of a grasp, meaning that you just want to hold something on to that one person, so it makes it feel like they went into you but you had it there all that time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So now you'll be like, okay, my father was a conga player, so maybe that's why I know how to play conga.
Right.
The spirit is in me.
Right.
That's just a way to keep yourself, tight with the person, which is a great thing. You found that one thing to say, I'm going to keep my dad here with me, in all times. Or was your dad the only musician there?
So in my father's side of the family, he grew up with like 9 brothers.
And they all play?
All my uncles were very musically inclined,
wow.
but oh my God, instrumentation-wise. So a lot of my uncles, one was very good with the bass, the other one was good with the pianos, the other one. So I learned that later on with my mom, when she was like, oh, your uncles were all into music. And my father had this wish and passion that he wanted the family together. My father when he passed, he was in his 70s, so obviously he grew up in the 40s and the 50s, so he wanted the family to be together. In his mind, I think he wanted to have like, kind of like the Fania records, like the group. I think that's what my father wanted, but my father wanted to be like the head honcho, but when you have old brothers, everybody wants to take control.
Yeah, too much man.
And they're old school Puerto Rican, so you can imagine, but all my father wanted to do was to play. So in that realm, yeah, they were very musically inclined. But when I came around, I just wanted to be the performer. I just wanted to be the artist. I just wanted to sing and be front row, but my father was more like the back end. He was more into that. So I think it was always in me, but from that side of the family, my father's side, yeah.
Oh, okay. So your mother's side of the family was like more
my
laid back
mom,
type.
she played guitar. Like she has some like experience in playing guitar. She was very into like the rock and roll, but she never was very focused in it. But if she put her mind to it, I'm pretty sure she could play. But yeah, my mom was musically in her own realm, but it was more my father.
Yeah, I think a lot of the old school Latin people can play some kind of music because that's all they used to do. In the Puerto Rico,
Salsa.
they be hitting the.
That's what it was.
You know, it was anybody there. Dominoes and conga. You have to know those two
That's the
things.
prerequisite in a Spanish culture.
Oh yeah.
Conga and dominoes. That's it.
If you don't, got to do one of the two. If you're not, you cut off. You cut off.
You can't play. Sorry.
My grandfather used to tell me that. Like I try to do, I don't know what that called, that little scratchy thing.
Oh yes.
And I was like, what's this? To pick my hair? Like
I used to think that too. Or like when you like for the food.
Yeah, and I'm like
the cheese,
he was like,
whatever.
You got no rhythm on that, but the conga, yeah, but this no.
He was like, into that, and also the maracas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, those are that's like the basics.
The basic Latino.
Yeah. Nowadays nobody know about none of that. Now they're just sitting in Pro Tools trying to make instruments these days.
Oh, you want maracas? Here you go, number 3.
Right.
I got it on the third one. I got
like,
it on the third.
You know how many friends can do it like organically? No, they don't.
You know, that's why I say shout outs to the salsa bands that have still that salsa band with the trumpets and all that. So
it's more organic, especially in the music.
Yeah, so we need it, you know, shout outs to them. But you know, like you said, so before you hit music, what would Jesse do for fun? What you know?
Jesse was into movies, comedy. He was very into the acting, and still is. He was very into reciting lines from a movie. I mean, my idols were, and still is Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, Whoopi Goldberg. For me, that was like my trinity. Those three are my trinity. And growing up in the 90s, I mean, come on, you have The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, Mrs. Doubtfire, Sister Act, Ghost, like all those movies for me as that young age were like my thing. And acting was something that came in first because I was always funny. I was always reciting lines. And a lot of my family were like very astounded, like how he remembers these lines from the movie. I can't remember that scene, but I always would like recite it and I would remember it word for word. So by the time I was like probably a teenager and I knew that I wanted to do the acting, once I had like my first script, I think if I could remember very well, it was still like kind of new because I was like, wait a minute, being an actor was lines from a paper like that you have to memorize because I just was memorizing just by listening phonetically and just watching. So it's the fact to just like really like get a script and started to memorize, it was so easy for me because I was just so visually into that. So at a young age, doing like the acting and the comedy and also very like speaking very eloquently at a young age was learning from like Oprah Winfrey and the talk shows was something that was in the beginning. The music was like kind of like I would say like the hobby of it all because growing up in my family, they only knew me to be like, oh, Jesse, do that scene from The Mask or do that scene from Austin Powers. And then I'm like, oh, I gotta do every holiday. And I'm like, oh, behave. And they start laughing. Or I'll do like The Mask and like, somebody stop me. And they start cracking up because that was like what I used to do at a young age, and that was like the niche for my family. So when music came, it was kind of like new for them. They were like, wait, what's this going on? Like, why night music? Like, you know, they didn't see me doing that, but it was something that was new and I wanted to do that. So that how I was started at an adolescent years was mostly in the acting. And when people like started like, oh, when they reference, they're like, okay, Jesse, like the actor, the comedic, you know, the very Broadway, that's Jesse right there because he's so funny. That's what they would mostly categorize me and reference me when I was at a young age.
Oh, that's not bad, you know. And for guys that have been watching the show and seen the Latinos or black and brown people, we always got to perform for our family. If you got a talent, you always got to perform. Come to the sala real quick.
Oh, God. And I'm like, why?
Everybody.
I just want to just listen to the combo. Why I got to? And it was every year. I mean, you can imagine as like, if there's something that you're good at, your cousins or your sisters, whatever, they want you to do it every year. Every year. And I'm like, God. And I think one time, my grandfather, he told me this one time. And he said, it's good to like act for your family and like do these scenes and do that. But after a while, you have to say no is no.
Right.
Because you don't want to be the brunt of all jokes where they're doing it either they're doing it because they're enjoying you doing it or they're doing it to make fun of you. And I didn't realize that at a young age. I'm like, oh, he's just being a hater. He's just saying that. Whatever. But now that I'm older, I'm like, when people are like, oh, can you perform for me? Can you do this? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. If you want to see this, you come to a show. If you wanted me to sing this song, you want me to do that scene, you come to the show. But back then I didn't understand that, because now it's like, you got to understand, why do they want you to do that? Are they doing it because they appreciate it, or they're just making fun of you?
Especially if you're doing something funny, they be like, are they laughing with you or at you? You know, so there's a big difference. So, which is good. We're gonna take our first break, and then when we come back, we're gonna talk more about, you know, your childhood and your love life. And
Love
everything
it,
else.
love it, love it.
All right, this the I was gonna say something else, but this is Speak Out, and we'll be right back with Jesse Vega more. Hello and welcome back to Behind the Mic with Jesse Vega. So, well, Jesse, you know, we're talking about a little bit of your childhood and everything, because I know growing up 90s and the 2000s, it's kind of hard going there. And once you're in the teenager, you start hitting your sexuality of where you want to go. Not only the sexuality, where do I belong? You know, how did all that affect you in life? Like going towards your sexuality, do I go here, do I go there? And also, who am I? Like, do I really want to bike ride with people? Or you know what I mean? Like, if that makes any sense.
You know, when that came about, I think it wasn't until I was in junior high where it was more of like figuring out who I am as a person, and trying to find out where do I fit in. And I think by the time I was in junior high school, I think I was like 13. So people, once I turned 13, a lot of my family members made a big deal. They were like, "Oh, you're 13! It's such a big deal!" And I'm like, "It's not even 21. Why is it such a big deal?" And in the Latino culture, like it was like 13, so many
16, 21.
Like it was like a big deal for the family. Like, "Oh, you're 13 is a big," and I'm like, "I guess." But then and then it hit me, because it was like, now I have to find out, what do I like? Am I into like guys? Am I into girls? Do I like sports? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? So I think it was a struggle, especially going into junior high school, because it was trying to find out how do I survive without, getting beat up in school all the time, name called, and that was happening a lot, especially in junior high school.
Yeah, because when you came out, it was about 90s, 2000 around there?
In the early 2000s.
So it was still bashing.
Early 2000s, mid 2000s. I think I didn't finally discover who I was until I was 14, but I didn't really.
Well, that's kind of quick, though. That's
Really?
not that bad. That's not that bad. Because, some people, like, before they ever come out, they still struggling to find out who they are. And normally they do 2-3 years before, because they like forcing themselves not to be who they really are, because there's people around them that don't like it, or there's people around them that don't do those things.
Yeah. I know people who started coming out, had wife and kids.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So,
and then they came out late 20s. I'm like,
yeah,
what the hell? Like,
and then
wow.
people were shocked, but he got kids. No, he was like this for so many years, but the surroundings around him didn't let him like come out, or her didn't let him come out, or even in it doesn't even have to be about the LGBT or being gay. It also can be about, damn, I like baseball, but all the people I hang out with play basketball. You know what I'm saying? And then in a late age, now they want to play basketball. So
right.
It happens. Me, it's like, you hang out with me now. Oh, you're in martial arts, but your friends are not. I'm like, I don't care.
It's like there's always like stereotypes.
Right, you have to be that certain thing, and that's when 13 to 16, you're trying to find out, do I really want to hang out with my friends that they're doing skateboarding, or do I want to hang out with my friends that are doing this, or do I want to go out with this girl or this guy? So it's like,
I think when I was growing up, it was very hard, because it was like a lot of name calling, a lot of bullying. That was happening. And then growing up in a machismo family, having all my aunts, and then my grandfather and my stepfather, they were very into like, boys are supposed to do what boys do, like, and everything was the fault of my mom, because the way my mom raised me. I was a very sick child growing up, always in and out of the hospital, so that also played a part. But I think I started to discover who I was until I was like 15.
Okay.
Came out when I was 15. I felt like very in control, euphoric, and then I think when I told my mom.
Your mom was the first one?
No, actually, the first one was a homegirl of mine in junior high school. Then I told my mom, but my mom was already like, she already kinda
Yeah, I was
like,
just gonna
no.
say that. That's what I was gonna say. Who was the actual first one that didn't
From
know? Because everybody pretty, that's the weirdest thing.
didn't know.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's the weirdest thing with the LGBT community that they be like, I was scared to come out. Why? Half of us already knew. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm like, wow, so I could have just done this a long time ago,
Right. But back in, like you said, the machismo thing, everything
it's
kept
the men in
blocking.
the family. Like
It's a mental thing.
they were very like putting pressure on my mom. And then, I was just thinking about this a few days ago. I was like, I think my mom, like she literally like was happy that I was the type of child that just didn't too much care about what people thought. And I think my mom grew up in her world where she didn't wasn't able to like speak up for herself in the sense of like, okay, this is what I like and this is what I do and I don't care. But there was always like the naysayers and always so much blockages for her. So when I was born, I was very like, this is me, this is who I am, I don't care. And a lot of the family, especially the men, or even my cousins were like, oh, it's like telling Jesse, like one ear out the other, don't do that, he'll still do it. You're not supposed to cross the street, he'll still do it. Don't eat that candy, he'll still do it. So it was like, you gotta love me or hate me at the same time, because I was like very like, I didn't too much care. And my mom found strength within that, because she was very like, if my son is very like oblivious to it, he don't care, he'll learn on his own, that's fine, as long as he's still happy. So at that age, when I was 15 and finally said, this is who I am, this is what I'm going to do, blah, 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 it was okay for me to be in the fantasy world where I don't care what people think of me, I'm going to still do me. But at the same time, the other side was I also had to have some type of backbone by like, you still have to respect me. You still have to like, yes, I could be your friend, but this is not what I'm going to tolerate. Back then, I was just very like, oh, he's mistreating me, that's fine, I'm just gonna keep it up. I was holding things in, not having a backbone, not being very like holding my own. And it took me a long time until I got into my 20s where I was like, you're not gonna disrespect me this way, I'm gonna say it like it is this way. But back then I was just very taking it all in because I just wanted to be accepted and loved. Right. But yet I was being abused at the same time, verbally and emotionally.
Wow, yeah, that is hard. Especially, like I said, kids can be cruel.
Yeah.
Kids can be cruel, and that's another thing, another reason probably, the fearness in the back of your head, like, I'm not going to come out, Plus, I'm not too sure, but then when I was getting towards 80%, 90%, because I hear this story so much, that's when they wanted to come out, but then they have the naysayers and the, here, wear these boy sneakers and the boy thing and the boy, like, pushing it because they trying to.
It was so much pressure. But I'm glad that I didn't grow up in a family. And I always think my mom, me and my mom, like she's a Leo, I'm a Capricorn. Leos are very like, there are different types of Leos, She's more of the passive aggressive Leo, where it's like they do whatever they want, no one can tell them nothing. But they learn in the end.
Right.
But they're observant in their own ways. Capricorns is very cabeza duro, they're very stubborn, but they're very goal-oriented. This is what they want to do, So it's like they give and take between those two sides. So my mom was very like, very protective. She let me be a kid. Growing up in the 90s, a lot of parents nowadays, they leave their child with any Tom, Dick, and Harry and their sisters and brothers, and then you don't know if they're doing drugs on the side or there's alcohol they introduce. My mom was very protective of me because I was always in the hospital. And she let me be a kid. She let me do what was in my world. Like, she let me do my world. I was into stuffed animals. I was into, like, talk shows, and I was always into dancing and reciting lines. Like, she let me be in my world, and anybody, like my cousins would come in and try to make fun of me, she would, like, kick them out and curse them out. She was the parent that let me do what I had to do. Because if not, I think she'd rather me stay home than being out in the streets. By the time I became a teenager, I guess that was her fear. being out in the world, because I'm very like, hi, my name is Jesse and I want to be a friend, and and she's like, oh my God, how are they gonna receive him? Jesse's just very like oblivious to so many things, but he could get hurt in the middle of the street and he'll get up and still be dancing. And it's like the other people were like, no, you're not supposed to act like that, you gotta like put a stop. But I didn't care. So that was my mom's fear, just the real world.
Right. Like I said, the mothers, no, parents, they know. So they probably felt it and like, oh, if once he comes out, it's gonna be a changing, life story right there and stuff. So, but you came out to your mom, what, second, third?
Second, but my mom was the first in the family.
Yeah, she was one of those like, okay.
Washing dishes.
Yeah, I know.
She already knew.
Yeah.
And I was like, but what the family's gonna say? Oh my God, what am I gonna do? And she's like, oh God, so dramatic. Because I remember, and I'm this is how it happened. I'll keep it very brief. But I told my mom, and I think it was like 5 in the morning. My mom was up, drinking her beer. Sorry, Ma. The coolest line. I'm just saying, I love
it's
you.
5 o'clock somewhere.
But she was drinking her beers and she's washing dishes. When she's washing dishes, it's because, my stepfather's coming home late at night, working, whatever. And she's just washing dishes, acting like she's doing dishes. And she's talking to me, and I'm like, Ma, I gotta talk to you. And she's like, what is it, Bobby? What is it? So I was like, I have something to tell you. I went through this situation with this boy, and I have something to say. And she's like, Jesse, just come out and say it. And I'm like, I don't even know what I am. I don't know what to do. And she's like, oh God, they're so dramatic. And like, I don't know, oh my God. And then she's laughing inside, and she's like, my son is so dramatic. Like, and then I finally told her, and she was like, okay, it's fine. And then I was like, but what are the families gonna say? What are we gonna do? Do we need to do a reunion? And she's like, no, Jesse, we're gonna just treat it like nothing happened. Like, the family's gonna come and that's it. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel embarrassed. There's nothing to feel embarrassed. We already knew. I'm like, really? What? How?
Like, y'all knew before me? Like, what the hell?
How did that happen? So that was how the story had happened when I told my mom. And I was like, 15 years old.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of people said, like, my parents knew, or this knew. It's just a mental state,
Yeah.
So, now you're 15, you at least 95% know where you're going and what you want to do. Because there's always that little 5% doubt and, or change of life could change you somewhere else. So you go into the music. How did, being sexually in one side, because, music in those days, it was like, LGBT.
Right.
Because I don't think it got accepted until maybe 2000, maybe a little more.
I would say, maybe.
Probably about a little more.
With the media, I think it started getting more accepted maybe like after the 2010s.
Yeah, because even in the 80s, we had a lot of them, but you were not supposed to say it. Boy George, George Mike. They were there, but no, you're not supposed to say it.
Back then, it was very like, you don't want to mention those names
don't mention
in a table.
Like now, they'd be like, Boy George, he was gay. So why you never said it when he was in the 80s and 90s? He was just, what they used to call him, not flamboyant, but colorful type of thing.
Colorful,
yeah. That was his artist thing. That was not really what he was.
They never wanted to say like what he was doing, like, because it would have been uncomfortable.
George Michael was the pretty boy. They always kept saying pretty boy. Knowing that he was gay, so they didn't want to mention it. So I think it was into the 2000 when they used to say, gay singer or something like that.
Right.
But in between there, how did you like break into the music?
So I think, so by the time I was like 15, 16, I was already like into like the music and dancing, because at that point I was already dancing and doing dance recitals and dance competitions. And Jennifer Lopez is one of my biggest idols, and that's when I started to like really be inspired by her and her story, her coming from the Bronx, being Puerto Rican, of color, and her upbringing was very hard. So I always looked up to her as like, if she could do it, and she came from the Bronx, and from first in her family, then it's possible that I can do the same thing too. I never put it as being LGBT was like, oh, I'm LGBT, so I want to be known as an LGBT artist, because what happens is when you get known to be that, that's all you'll be. And then they want to stigmatize you. Like, why I gotta be just LGBT artist who does music? It's just, yes, I'm into, the same sex, but I'm an artist, period, that does music. And yeah, maybe my artistry can be a little bit uncomfortable for some heterosexuals,
Right.
but it's art. This is what music is. There's no different facets of like what is right or wrong. It's all about emotions. It's all about your stories. So by the time, I think when I was 16, 17, I always wanted to do the music. I just didn't have the right sources, the right materials until later on, until I got into my 20s, that if I was doing it, what would people want to see Jesse Vega mostly want to do? They see that I'm very theatrical. They see that I'm very high energy on stage. So I always knew that I wanted to put that in my artistry, as in putting dancing as like the main thing, because people want to see me go off. They want to see the dancing. They wanted to be seeing the club music, the dance music. And then little by little, you grow as you get older when it comes to like vocals and singing ability. Like, there's different types of music. You got your powerhouses, and then you got your soul singers, and you got the ones that whisper on records. And there's different types. There's not one way of like, this is what singing should be, or this is what music should be. So I think I found my niche as when I was like, okay, what is what people want to see when they see Jesse Vega? Okay, I'm gonna add this, I'm gonna add this, I'm gonna do this. Maybe not do that, because I go by energy. So it came within that time.
Right. Well, that's not bad though, to do it that way, and which is true. I tell a lot of people, do not get, typecasted. And if you do, you get that label, you're pretty much done.
Yeah, you get typecast, especially and that's the thing that frustrates me about with music as LGBT. Like, okay, I don't think of it as, okay, he or she is LGBT, so I love him or her more. I think about, okay, the music, the style, the performance. But nowadays, people get psyched into like, oh wow, like he's very into LGBT. Like, this is so great. I love this artist because he's into that. Like, I was just speaking about this recently, and I was like, walking into like Rainbows, for example, and me shopping, and some females, heterosexual women, like, they'll look at me, or they'll look at any gay male, and they'll be like, oh yes, girl, yes this, and they'll say yes, queen, and I'm like, did I give you the authority to just think because I went into a store that it's okay for you to say yes, like, and we're this friends. And like we're friends, and like it's the stereotype? No, because it's not fair to like just label it. Because what about if I wanted to shop for my sister? Like, I don't give you the right to just label me as such, or because you see that it's okay. Yeah. But if it was the other way around, it'll be offended. You know what I'm saying? So we need to stop that.
Yeah, it's like something I was speaking about on my other show, where you can't say the B word to another female you don't know. Like, hey, B, like, who you calling me a B?
You can't.
You don't know me like that. And then their friend be like, hey, B, hey, girl. It's a totally different. So I understand what you're trying to say,
Or even the N word, like when you're saying it with your friends, or saying it.
You can say it to a friend, but you can't say it to a stranger. Like, some people are like, what?
Yeah.
But that comes to a play where, like, a person that's not born in the ghetto or something, and then sees a ghetto person, and they be like, hey, what's up? Like, do you know even if I've talked like that? So that
I've had a situation where I was walking in the street, and very serious story, and this African American woman came up to me, and I mean, I can't curse on this show, right? But what she really said to me.
Beep it out. They beep it.
Okay. So I was walking in the street, walking on the sidewalk, and she just comes to me, and she's like, oh wow, I hate this word to say, but she was like, oh, you're a pretty faggot. And like, literally the word just like wanted to erupt to say something very grotesque to her, because she was African American. But I said, if I say this next word to her, because what she said, I'm gonna get dragged, and then there's another African American man that's mine, and then I'm gonna get. But she didn't know any better because she was drunk.
Right.
So obviously I was like, I'm gonna give her a pass. But her just saying that just takes me back to be like, oh, people are just so ignorant. To just say things like that word.
Yeah, that word is still in people's lips, or in some places. Like, Africans and all that, they still say that word, but it's not a mean word. It's just they labeling.
But it's still, it's to
still
me,
a
it's
label,
still,
yeah.
I don't, it's still just shouldn't be said, period. Even like when they say the N word, like,
Right.
I would never go into a professional environment and just say it. Like, unless it's with my friends under the table that we have that agreement. But people throw those words that it's okay.
Yeah, the N word or the F word, those two words people fought for them to erase. So that I do understand. That's why I don't understand too much when people are like, "Yo, my N, my N." I'm like, we fought to erase that word.
Yeah.
They fought, Stonewall and all that. They fought to erase that F word and to put it as gay man or gay female. But now, they bring in all the letters. But I'm still gay man, gay female. You know what I'm saying?
We can go on with a
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
political review on that. It's like,
So-
we just gotta get rid of the word period, but.
Yeah, but now, when you finally came out, did you see changes in people, or like did it push you
yeah.
back? Like you was like, because I know a lot of people, they come out, they happy now, but then they get depressed and they come back down.
Well,
Did that ever happen?
so when I was in 15 and I came out, I was like, okay, so this is what it is to come out. Okay, so I'm gonna be who I am, and I'm not gonna care. Blah 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 blah. When I get to high school, it's gonna be me. Everyone's gonna love me because I'm so confident. Well, that didn't really happen like that because when I was in high school, it kind of backfired on me because I thought by being so confident of being, I am this, and maybe people are gonna love me, I was stepping into another world, another environment where you're already a teenager, you're already a mid-teens. I was going into a school that had no building. We were like kind of like the kids that didn't get accepted in any other high school. So I was one of the kids that were in a room full of kids that just didn't get accepted. So a lot of the students around where I was at were still figuring out who they were, what they like, what they want to be when they grow up. They didn't really too much care about whether you were gay or straight. They didn't care. They mostly cared about finishing school, making friends if they made friends, or cliques. That's what it was. And just being like delinquents. I guess I guess that's what that era, I mean, this was what, 2006, 7?
Yeah.
That was their mind. And I thought, like, when I came in and I was, I'm Jesse, I'm into this, I'm da-da-da-da, they respected, but they didn't too much care for it. So I was like, damn, I've worked so hard to, like, I was holding this in, and, like, now that I'm myself, they don't care. Like, I feel like now I'm back to square one. They're not accepting me. So what am I missing? Like, what's going on? So when I got into high school, it was like, again, it was cliques. It was when I was one of the first who was LGBT, but I still didn't fit in. Like, they didn't really too much care because I was just I guess I was so confident in myself that I knew what I wanted to do.
Right.
I knew what I wanted to be, how I wanted to execute that. And I was around a room full of kids that still didn't figure it out, what they wanted to be. So it was like, yeah, we know that's Jesse. We know what he likes. We see it, but I'm just not going to validate it. I don't care.
Right.
Like, I guess they were more fed into, like, being into, like, playing hooky and making fun of the teachers and fighting. And I was not into that. So I felt lost. And then there was another LGBT person that came into my school who was more who didn't know who they were, was into fighting, making jokes, and they just gravitated towards that. I'm like, but I am just as animated as that person. Why are they gravitating to that? Like, and they're confident in their own self, but at the same time, they still were lost in their own way. So growing up in high school, for me, was just lost. In junior high school, I think I had the best years of my life because it was not bad, but it wasn't good. But I still was leveled. I still had my friends, but I was still suffering of who I was. But in high school, it was like I was lost.
Yeah.
I didn't really know where I was at.
Everyone that goes from junior high, straight, gay, no matter who you are, from junior high to high school, because I guess junior high, you maybe 5 years, because some of them are elementary to junior high in the same schools.
Correct.
So when now they go to another high school, all your popularity, everything that you thought you had in that school, gone. Because I was popular in junior high. Then when I got to high school, I'm like, excuse me, do you know? Excuse me.
Yeah.
Like, nobody was paying attention to me. And I'm like, okay, where's the band room? Oh, you nerd, the band room was over there. You know, so I was like, what? Like, I know this boy. You know, so it's like you start all over again. So
It was the worst feeling in high school.
Yeah,
It just
it is.
felt
It
more
is.
like a struggle, like literally a struggle. Like I cannot tell you, Charles. I would walk in the room and I would just try to say hi to people. They would just not. They would just keep going.
Yeah.
Or I would try to make conversation, ignoring me. And I used to hate it. And I'm like, well, what am I? Is my breath kicking? Am I that annoying? What is wrong with me? Like, why no one likes me? And I realized now it was because they were just lost. They just did not know what they wanted to do in their life. They just didn't want to be dealing with school. These were kids that were disowned from any high school that they wanted to be, and they're stuck in this school with a bunch of delinquents, and they didn't have time to be friends with anybody unless they wanted to be a mess. I don't know how to explain it, but that's how I felt.
It's hard, yeah, especially if you have your set goals and stuff. It's like, I don't want to deal with this. I got my set goals. Like, I didn't care. I sat
Do you
down
think that's
by
what
myself.
it is? Like when you're dealing with someone who knows what they want to be,
Right,
versus someone like they still can't figure it out.
Because when I was in high school, I sat by myself, and they would come in, and you know, I didn't get to have friends until maybe the half of the year, or maybe the second year is when people started, like, hey, can I sit here? Because I was a smart ass, even though I was smart. We were like, yeah, it's empty. Like, what are you telling me for? Like, this is a free lunch room. So I used to just sit there. But then after a while, people would gravitate. But I didn't go searching for them because I was lost. I'm like, I'm popular, but now I'm in a high school.
So you wasn't searching for friends.
Right. I was just searching for, like, what am I doing this high school for? Like, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? So when you're in a different path of searching, people won't gravitate.
I was just searching for friends, and they didn't care.
Like,
they didn't want to be my friend. They did not care, and it was killing me. It was like, oh God.
Until they find out that one little thing that they can grab you. Like, they didn't become my friends until they found out who I was, who my brothers were. And then they found out, wait a minute, ain't you the guy that was in the Black Belt magazine? Oh my God. And that's when everybody wanted to talk.
So it's something where they gravitate that would interest them.
Right. If you let them find something interesting in you, or instead of forcing the interest on them, because sometimes I felt like when someone was forcing, it was more like a bragging, even though you was like, hey, hi, you're not bragging about nothing, but it was that feeling like, okay, why is this guy wanting over here and talking to me?
I think
like,
that's what it
what
was. Yeah, so I agree.
It could happen in certain ways, but we're young. We don't know. You know what I'm saying?
I was too strong. I was too in your face, and people was like,
yeah, let's go. Oh, we're gonna hang out. Yeah, we're gonna hang out. Let's go there. Like, oh, wait, hey, hold up.
They just wanted to get rid of me. That was it. I'm sorry. They didn't care.
They didn't care.
They didn't care.
Now you say you were in the hospital a lot of times and you were sick, but now I know you now, and you have this confidence. You have you have a scar.
Oh yes.
But you don't care. You like show it off and everything. First of all, what was the scar about? Like what happened?
So I suffered from portal vein thrombosis. It's a whole medical situation. Look it up. But basically, it's just veins that will clot in the abdomen around the esophageal portal vein, and when they will clot, backed up blood would attack one of the organs, and one of the organs that attacked was my spleen. So your spleen is the organ that produces white blood cells.
Yeah.
And when there's blood that's sucking a lot and clotting, then you get anemic because you're not having enough blood that's filtering through your body. And then you end up developing a big stomach because the organ is so big. So your spleen is supposed to be at least 2 to 3 centimeters. Mine was anywhere from 6 to 7, maybe 8. It's very dangerous. So you can imagine as a parent, even as a child, like your child right now, just like I was like that age, and even before that, huge spleen. So as a parent, my mom was very afraid of me going into sports. I couldn't get into sports. My mom couldn't allow me to be around the boys. I mean, imagine sports, they get very aggressive, very rough. One hit, that's it. Spleen ruptured, run to the hospital, end the motherfucking story. So my mom was very afraid of that. She was very afraid of me getting bullied. She was scared. But I was so animated and so happy that I could be jumping at like 4 stairs and my cousins would jump, and they'll say, Jesse, don't do it, you're gonna hurt yourself, and I'll still do it anyway. And end up crying, hurt.
Right.
I have like a little scar here. I don't know if it's still there, but like even like if you notice, like one side of my forehead is like a little lump over here than this one.
You hit your head?
Because I used to always hit my head all the time because
my
I was very animated. I was very, always jumping and flipping and twirling and all this. I was so, So I developed always getting cantazos all the time. Didn't care, Charles, didn't care. Because I was still living life. I was so happy. So I ended up having a enlarged spleen, and I was always in and out of the hospital all the time.
Wow.
So I was anemic. I had to do a lot of endoscopies because I would get varices, which is swollen blood vessels that will like be very swollen, and if they burst, then they will bleed internally. I would not know. They would have to inject the veins. So I was anemic. I had a large spleen. In and out of the hospital, and I think that I didn't have the surgery until I was 16. I had a splenic vein a shunt, which, according to the surgeon, was another way for the blood to flow. So they made like another passageway in the veins for me to have the blood to flow from the heart to the brain. So from the age of like adolescent, in an incubator to 16, I've always had a large spleen.
You just learned to adapt.
To me, I thought it was just who I was.
Right.
It didn't affect me as in, I felt any different. To me, I just thought it was me. I didn't care. But kids nowadays, they suffer. They cry a lot. They can't live their life. I didn't care because it was who I was, and it wasn't going to change me. I was always happy. But for my mom, she was always feared for my life because she suffered. She was in a room in Lincoln Hospital where children were dying every couple of hours in incubators and parents crying, where I fought. I was like literally this close of never making it into this world because I was with tubes. If I have pictures, I could show you, but it was terrible. That I'm like, wow. It was very scary. So yeah, that was one of the main causes of why I had the surgery. But Lincoln Hospital, when they opened me, they didn't really do a great job because this is the 90s. They didn't know what I had.
Yeah.
I was very
They're just learning, basically.
I was a guinea pig. And they opened me up, left me with all that junk, and I developed ascites, like just junk that they didn't clean me out. So my mom had to take me out of Lincoln to Mount Sinai in 91. And then that's when they took all that ascites out. And then I just developed a large stomach throughout all the years. I had a hernia. My medical record reports were like huge.
See, yeah, but that's what the thing I like about you is the confidence. You're like, I don't care. You love me with the scar, love me without it. You know what I mean? So
there's ways you could get rid of it, but for what? It's just who I am.
But I got the scar.
I am 2019.
I got a scar in my eye, and people because I was blind and they gave me my sight, and many people was like, oh, you can get that cup. Why? I want that because that reminds me of what I did, how I am, how I pushed and I kept on going.
It's your story.
Yeah, without it, I'm gonna be like, who was I? Like, I don't want to lose that.
It's who you are. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I like about the confidence and everything. It's like, okay, but I want the people to see, why? Because people seeing your videos and they're like, okay, how he got the scar?
Yeah, it's very shocking when they see that. Like, wow, wait, he has a scar. Like, how can he? They're very astounded because it's like so big and like so vivid that they're like, what's his story? Did he get shot? What like it's so big deal. And he's like carrying it on. Like he don't care. Now you got people doing BBLs and getting rid of scars and all this stuff because they're so insecure of their bodies and some of them want to look good. I don't really give two craps. That's just me.
But now if you were a rapper, you'd be like, yeah, I got shot.
It'll fit in. It'll fit in.
Like,
right?
I got
just
shot.
change my career. I'll just be a rapper. It'll be like a whole big
and nobody
deal.
would ever care. They won't even ask questions.
I want to have a scar just like him.
No, but that is good, So we're entering your past, your sexuality. You know who you are, and you know who you want to be and stuff like that. But did you know already that you wanted to be like a pop star, or like because I know some people were like, yeah, I was a singer, but they didn't know what type of singer they wanted to be. Did you
I think I always
knew?
knew I wanted to do pop music. I always had an ear for pop music. I can't tell you, even though I try to write a ballad, I'm like this. I can't come up with shit. Like I can't.
Oh.
But I always wanted to do pop because of the dance. And because of like my idols like Jennifer Lopez, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, like pop was so in my mind, or pop rock, like musical theater.
Right.
So because I was already into that, you just adapt to those sounds that I can literally come up with like a dance song, and I'm like, okay, this is how the melody goes. But again, like I said, those things didn't happen until my dad passed away. Where now I'm like, oh, I could get into that. I could be like, oh, you could add the like all these harmonies. Like I'll sit with my friend, and he'll be like, oh, I have this record and I don't know what to do, and I'll be like, okay, add this. And he's like, how the hell you can hear that? I'm like, that's another tidbit that people don't know of me, because they'd see like, oh, Jesse's this, just that, but they don't know that behind the scenes, like I produce my records. I produce like the backgrounds and the harmonies here and there. I do those things because I have an ear for it. Like if people like literally sit down and they be like, okay, let me listen to Jesse's like style and his albums and his music to see what he's into, then they'll get it. They're like, okay, I see what he's into. It does reference this. It does have this kind of style.
Yeah, it has like I tell everybody, it has like a trademark.
It does.
Like I can watch someone's video, music video, and I'll be like, okay, that was A, B, and C that did that one.
Yeah.
And they'll do another one. Oh wait, this is not the same person that did this video.
Right.
Because everyone has like a trademark.
Right.
And even with music, you be like, as soon as you hear the little beat, you be like, oh, that's a Jesse beat. You know, so it's like a trademark, which is good, because that means you understand what you want and what you want to do.
Right.
But we're going to take our last commercial break, and then when I come back, I want to talk about directing and how did you come into that, because, you know, music is music, but then all of a sudden directing was like different turn. All right. Well, this is Behind the Mic, and again, I'm with Jesse Vega, and we'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to Behind the Mic with Jesse Vega.
Yeah.
So, Jesse, we got a little bit of time left, and I want to talk about how you went from singing to directing in your music videos. And let me tell you, I'll be the first one to tell you. I always say it. You know, like some of your songs, I'll be like, do I like these? I don't like. But then when I watch the video, it's like your videos are so storytelling.
Yeah.
They animate it, and like, you know, like the last one that you did with the Alice in Wonderland type of theme. Those, I'm a music video freak, that it has to have a story. It has to have good lighting, good transitions, and all this. So how did you get from singing to saying, you know what, let me produce my own videos and direct my own videos? Like, where did that happen from?
So I always, you know, when it comes to like music, I always think about like the MTV era. You know, when you're growing up, that's where if you hear the music, you're always thinking about what the video is gonna be like, because growing up in that world, MTV, VH1, that was what you wanted to watch. Is like what the video's gonna be. So because I grew up in that era, I always like, okay, I want to do a music video for it, you know. And sometimes it depends on the song, you know what I'm saying? Like, everybody gravitates towards different things when they're listening to my songs, you know. Sometimes they're like, okay, I like this song because, you know, it has this pop beat, but how the video is going to be, do you want to cater to just the vocals and just stand there and do the music, or you want to have a storyline? I always pick and choose what I'm going to do. And you've been a fan, and you've been hearing some of my songs. I've been on LDM radio.
Like how do you, because I'm the same way, like a couple people send me their songs and be like, what do you think I should do? And I write down a little story, or a video. How do you come out? Because I do it by listening to the lyrics of what you're talking about.
Right.
But how do you come up with your stories?
I come up with it in the sense of like, if it's something that like I'm inspired by, or what I see visually. Sometimes I'll see the video visually, and then I'm like, okay, so this is what's gonna happen. This is gonna happen. This is the bridge. This is the chorus. This is so, like, for example, like you were saying, like in the Alice one, with that video, I already knew that I wanted to have multiples. Originally, I wanted to do multiples of me, but again, when you asked me about like directing, when you have no budget, so you gotta do things yourself.
Yeah, you gotta be all the parts.
You gotta be all the parts,
yes,
because you don't have a team, and it's not easy as artists, independent, to do things on your own, but you can do it. So with that, I already knew that I wanted to tell a story in the sense of like, okay, Alice in Wonderland, I wanted to be like, this is like my little audition tape for like producers or directors. If they can see I can do Broadway or musicals, this is what you're gonna see. This is what I can give you. And I cannot tell you, a lot of people has hit me up and they were like, wow, Jesse, like you really sound really good in this record. You have like great vocals on this song. Like you like, this is the type of songs that you should do. And you know, I do a little bit of everything, especially like the For You song, the Latin Award winning song, Será Tú. Everyone was already loving the fact like the song was so good, the way I produced it. I had like an Indian producer who did the beat and the vocals. And with that video, I wanted just not to tell a story. I just wanted to give visuals and colors, like black and white and everything pure. So when it comes to like directing it, it's all about seeing it visually. And then I'm like, okay, this is how it is, the verse, this is how the chorus is gonna be. So everything is strategically executed based on the music and the flow. And with the music, you also have to edit it in a way where it's gonna flow, you know? So I take it very strongly when I'm directing my own visuals. And a lot of people, like, they see, like, they may be like, okay, the song's okay, or whatever, but I don't give two shits, because I still, you know, it's the best song anyway. I like it, you know, because there's other ones that they have great vocals, and I'm like, yeah, but they don't promote it, or they're not, they don't know how to perform. So me, I take very pride in my records and the songs that I do. And I always try to put, and I execute a lot in my acting in it and my dancing in it as much as I can. So like, if they didn't like the song, that's okay, because once they see the video, they're gonna like the song, and that's what's gonna have people buy it. Which I cannot tell you, that's why a lot of my records have been popular, because they've been watching my videos.
Well, like you said, in the era of MTV, I remember we was like, yo, you see that girl that was on the video? Wasn't she on this video? Like, and we'll talk about the video. Or sometimes, you know, when Rock was out, we're like, what that video had to do with the song? Like, you know, when we were young, we had that. But
some songs don't make any sense when they have the video. I'm like, wait, I didn't really, why? That video doesn't make any sense.
Like, why he jumping out the plane for? Like, what's it?
But every artist has their own interpretation of what they see in their mind of what the song means to them.
And it's hard as a director and producer to take what's in your brain and put that on the paper.
Right.
Some people be like, why do I got to move this way? Just move that way, buddy.
Which is an example of why that song, Alice, was actually, it's a cover of Lady Gaga's song.
Right.
And I always knew, I was like, Lady Gaga, if she did that record, her interpretation of Alice would be her in a psych ward, because she talks about her being in a psych ward, her being mentally unstable, mentally psychotically depressed. So her visual of Alice would have been so totally different than what my visual would be, where mine was more like Alice in Wonderland, Disney.
Right. It was more like a fun, like.
It was more fun, but if she would have done it, it would have been more like in a psych ward.
Yeah,
it would have
more
been
dark.
More dark. So everybody has their own different interpretation of what a song may be.
Right. So, you know, we're running out of time, and I just want to say thank you for letting us enter your life and, you know, get to know who Jesse Vega is and everything like that. So, you know, we wish you luck with everything else.
Thank
and
you
just
so
keep
much.
on going. Keep on
and
going.
so much. And thank you so much for like really putting my music out there.
Yeah,
I won on LDM radio.
Yes.
How many people who won on the Latin Award?
But,
did you vote, Charles? Did you vote for me, Charles?
I can't vote for nobody. I wish I could, because,
but
you know.
How many Latin Awards were there? Because I think it was the fourth, right?
This one was the fourth Latin Award, I think it is.
Was that? I'm not too sure. So I know
we had 7. We've been on 6 awards.
Javier was one of the first.
Right, and
then there was
Javier won twice.
Won twice.
Right,
and then there was a
Javier
group.
Lewis, and then there was a group that won.
And then there was Vero G.
Vero G and you 5.
So I guess I was what, the second male or the third?
Yeah, you're probably like the second male because we only had one group, and then we had Javier Lewis, who wants to take all of them. He's
I
real
guess I'm
good.
the one. I guess I'm the one who was like under 35s who won.
Yeah, under the 30. But it's good, you know.
It was wonderful. It was exciting to like really win. I was like, finally, yeah.
Yeah, you know, hey, sometimes they say, you know, you can go 10, 20 years, you know, but people still know who you are, but you didn't get to that one point. Like there's actors that haven't gotten awards, but you know who they are. So, you know, but it was great that we can be there and, you know, you continue your work.
It was wonderful.
Hopefully it pushes you to do even better, you know, and continue coming out and doing what you got to do. So
thank you so much, Charles.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jesse Vega, check him out on Instagram, Facebook. I think you got Twitter too, right?
Twitter, I got all of that.
Yep, check him out, Jesse Vega, and check out his songs on YouTube as well. So this is Behind the Mic. I'm Charles Laloma, and that's Jesse Vega.
Bye, guys.
See you next time.
Love y'all.
Baby, hold it down for me. Haters smiling in your face, really